There are over 1,200 islands in Croatia, and picking the ones that you want to visit can be a little bit overwhelming. The first one on our itinerary was Brac, one of the largest in the country, a short ferry ride away from Split. Our base was the small town of Bol, on the southern coast. This quiet town turned out to be a great place to stay, not only because of its pleasant promenade and lovely bars and restaurants, but also because of its proximity to Zlatni Rat. Many consider this to be the most beautiful beach in Croatia, and who am I to disagree? A narrow strip of pebbles jutting out into the Adriatic, the Golden Horn is kite surfers' paradise. There is something quite special about standing at the tip of this beach, almost entirely surrounded by water. Here you can find any sort of attraction a beachgoer might want, from cocktail bars to water sports, lounge chairs and inflatable playgrounds for kids. Zlatni Rat's popularity means that the place is normally packed, but you can easily get a quieter experience by walking west from the main beach. Here you will find countless natural coves. Fair warning, this place is a favorite for naturists. So long as you don't mind that, and let's be honest, why would you will be rewarded with calm and secluded little inlets. Come early enough, you might even get your own little private beach for the day. That's what happened to us, and not just in Brac in fact. And to me, that's the best thing about a beach holiday in Croatia. Back from the beach, you will be able to enjoy dinner in one of Bol's many restaurants. I suggest you stop at Stina Winery and get comfy at one of their cute beachside tables to watch the sunset while savoring some of their delicious wines and a board of mouth-watering Dalmatian ham and cheese. It's one of my favorite memories from the trip. There's a lot to see in Brac, but our main goal was to relax, so we decided to focus on the area around Bol, which actually turned out to be a pretty great choice. In a day, you can easily reach any point on the island, but I had set my eye on Pustinia Blaca, a gorgeous hermitage tucked away in the mountains west of Bol. To reach it, you drive for around 1 hour and then hike for another 45 minutes from the parking lot. A piece of advice: if you visit in the summer, set off early, which we did not, to avoid the scorching heat. The Hermitage was established by Glagolitic monks in 1551 and run by them until 1963. Today, two brothers manage the facilities, taking tourists on a tour of the building, showing them how the monks lived, and explaining how the Hermitage was built. No pictures or videos are allowed inside, unfortunately, but trust me when I say this place is a little gem. On our way back to Bol, we stopped at Vidova Gora, the highest point in Brac. From here, the view is breathtaking, with the bright, pointy head of Zlatni Rat tearing into the deep blue waters of the Adriatic, and the island of Hvar, our next destination, just a few kilometers across the channel. Hvar, and in particular the impossibly pretty Hvar town, is known as a glamorous party destination. It doesn't take long to understand how glitzy it is. All you need to do is go for a stroll along the harbor, where humongous yachts the size of the town itself are normally moored. Towering above Hvar, straight up the hill from the gorgeous Venetian loggia, is the monumental Spagnola fortress. The imposing fortifications are a not-so-subtle reminder of the importance of Hvar during the Venetian rule, when the town became a safe harbor for the Venetian fleet and grew prosperous. This made it a target for Ottoman attacks, of course, like the one in 1571. On that occasion, it was the fortress that offered the locals protection. Just 8 years later, the building was destroyed by a gunpowder explosion. Needless to say, from up here, Hvar looks like a postcard, well worth the steep walk up the hill. Back at sea level, you can't miss the town's piazza, the largest in Dalmatia, connecting the port with the Cathedral of St. Stephen. come here for a drink or a bite to eat, and then go for a walk around the alleys of the old town or along the winding seafront. Even though the town felt quite busy, its bars and restaurants full of people, the set sight of a closed hotel of some 300 rooms just minutes from the center reminded us that these are not normal times, and that Croatia, like all places, is reeling from the shock of the pandemic. Just off the town of Hvar, you will find the Pakleni island chain. Motorboats and water taxis constantly zip back and forth between the two, taking tourists to some of the nicest beaches in the area. Many of them decide to head to Palmigiana, but we found it way too crowded and touristy. We opted for Jerolim instead, for a much quieter and enjoyable experience. Beach going is pretty much the same across Croatia. You pack your lunch and a beach umbrella and set off on a hike along a rugged coastline covered in pine trees, checking out hidden coves and rocky beaches until you find the perfect spot. Finding the best, wildest stretches of coast here requires commitment. You will often have to scramble down rocky inclines leading to the sea or trek for a full half hours through the maquis. What they lack in ease of access and comfort, however, Croatia's beaches make up for with peace and quiet and crystalline water. Hvar is also the ideal base for excursions to the nearby island of Vis, home to two impressive natural sights. One is the Green Grotto, a large cave in which you can swim, even though there is absolutely nothing green about it, and the Blue Grotto, where the white floor reflects the sunlight and creates a magical effect. Another popular spot on Vis is the beach at Stiniva Bay, formed by the implosion of a cave. The place is stunning, but the experience is somewhat spoiled by the hordes of tourists playing loud music from their rental boats. The last stop on our island hopping itinerary was Korcula. Here we stayed in the tiny, picture-perfect town carrying the same name and claiming to be the birthplace of famous explorer Marco Polo. A privilege that of course Venice is not willing to give up easily. Built on an oval-shaped promontory and walled like so many other historical towns in Croatia, Korcula is a gem of Venetian Renaissance architecture. You enter the old town by means of the monumental staircase leading up to the town gate. From here, it's a continuous succession of picturesque corners and remarkable buildings. I took a couple of hours to explore old Korcula, whose street plan is shaped like a fishbone, a clever way of sheltering the town and its inhabitants from the strong winds blowing in from the sea. This layout also makes the town very easy to navigate. I also climbed to the top of the bell tower of the 15th century Cathedral of St. Mark, where I was awarded with stunning 360-degree views of the town, the Adriatic, and the continent just across the water. If you're looking for another great viewpoint, ideal for photographs, look no further than the pretty street running along the bay to the west of town. Come here at sunset and you will see Korcula at its most magnificent. The beaches around Korcula aren't the best we've seen in the country, but there are a few lovely spots in Dumbarda and on the island of Badia, a short water taxi ride away. In Badia, boats dock right next to the gorgeous Franciscan monastery, where you can enjoy turquoise waters and a friendly herd of deer. If you're looking for an actual beach, you will have to follow the path east of the monastery. After 3 days in Korcula, it was time for us to hop on the last ferry of the trip. Destination, the famous city of Dubrovnik. It doesn't take long to understand why this is one of the most popular destinations in the Mediterranean, nicknamed the Pearl of the Adriatic. I must admit, it is hard to deny the charm of this place, with its perfectly preserved walls and picturesque red roofs. So popular has Dubrovnik become that in recent years the local government has regulated the influx of visitors by staggering the scheduled departure and arrival dates of cruise ships. The city walls are known to have received more than 10,000 visitors in a single day. And according to a 2017 Daily Telegraph article, at busy times it can take up to 40 minutes to walk down the 250-meter-long Stradun, the town's main street. This was clearly not a problem this past summer, with the pandemic drastically reducing the number of tourists roaming the streets of the city. Dubrovnik enjoyed relative independence for the 500 years up to 1806, when Napoleon's troops finally conquered it. Over these 5 centuries, the then called Maritime Republic of Ragusa became a trading hub that rivaled Venice in the Adriatic. Partly thanks to its alliance with the city of Ancona, on Italy's eastern coast, Ragusa cleverly developed a trading route to northern Europe that entirely bypassed Venice. With wealth came a flourishing of the arts and culture, as one can easily see by looking at the spectacular churches and palaces dotting the old town. We entered the old town through the Pila Gate and immediately found ourselves in front of Big Onofrio's fountain, one of the city's landmarks, dating back to 1438. It was heavily damaged by the 1667 earthquake, which leveled most of the city, but 16 masks are still visible. In front of the fountain, the Renaissance Church of Saint Saviour, which was one of the few buildings to survive the tremor. The next site worth visiting along the elegant Stradun is the Franciscan monastery, famous for its wonderful Romanesque cloister. At the opposite end of the Stradun lies Luja Square, the heart of Dubrovnik, where most of its landmarks are concentrated, including the city's beloved clock tower. Right next to it is the incredible Sponza Palace, built in the early 1500s. This was the city's old customs office, even though this is only one of the many uses of the building over the centuries. Opposite is the Church of St. Blaise, the patron saint of Dubrovnik, and just a few meters away, the Rector's Palace, home to the holder of the executive power in the city. Its porch is unbelievable. A few steps from here is the imposing Assumption Cathedral with its elegant dome. Its Romanesque 12th century iteration was built with the financial contribution of English King Richard the Lionheart, a not so understated donation for having survived a shipwreck near the island of Locru, just off Dubrovnik, in 1192. The most exciting thing we did in Dubrovnik was without a doubt the 2-kilometer walk along the city ramparts, strictly one way to avoid overcrowding. These mighty stone walls, between 4 and 6 meters thick, cover the entire perimeter of the old town, offering jaw-dropping views of the sea and Dubrovnik's skyline. Towers, bastions, gates, turrets. It is hard to imagine a better preserved, and frankly a more impressive system of fortifications. The walls we see today were largely built between the 13 and the 1400s, even though they were expanded and strengthened continuously until the 17th century. Part of the reason the walls are still intact is that throughout this time Ragusa was able to largely avoid direct military confrontation with its enemies, be it the Turks or the Venetians. Diplomacy was the cornerstone of its international relations, although I'm sure that the walls acted as a pretty powerful deterrent for attackers, or an effective insurance policy for locals, depending on how you want to look at it. Today, in a time of peace, Dubrovnik's walls are a source of pride for the city and a beloved attraction for tourists, attracted here by the fairy tale-like atmosphere that enshrouds them. And actually, it is a work of fiction that draws so many people to Dubrovnik, the TV show Game of Thrones. The franchise has done wonders for the economy of Dubrovnik, with official GOT stores and tours giving people the opportunity to spend a few hours in King's Landing. Visit the majestic Lovrijenac fort and you will recognize the Red Keep castle, home to the King of the Andals and the First Men. Perched up on top of a cliff opposite the old town, Lovrijenac overlooks Dubrovnik, no doubt offering the town some extra protection over the centuries. The visit to the walls is well worth the rather hefty price of the ticket, €30, even if you're not a Game of Thrones fan. Believe me, I know. Another painfully expensive attraction is the legendary cable car to the top of Sarge Mountain. When we visited, it wasn't running due to high winds, so we opted for a 50-minute gut-wrenching but inexpensive taxi ride to the top. This is the view of Dubrovnik, one that I know I will never forget. With all these attractions, it is easy to forget that Dubrovnik also boasts a number of lovely spots for beachgoers. Many of them decide to spend the day in the lush Lokrum Island, around 10 minutes off Dubrovnik. While beautiful, after 3 weeks spent discovering the best that Croatia has to offer, Lokrum felt a bit underwhelming. Perhaps it was the bumpy ferry ride to the island that slightly put me off, making me hope that we'd be just as lucky to escape as Richard the Lionheart, but I think there are better places for some time in the sun around here. I would recommend St. Jacob, not least because it is a sandy beach, a rare find in Croatia, but also the secluded Kava beach, a favorite for naturists and for anyone who loves transparent water. Dubrovnik was the perfect way to end our trip to Croatia. This jewel of a town is the epitome of what the country is all about: rich history and natural beauty. Personally, I don't know how I would have done here on a regular COVID-free year, elbowing my way through the crowds on the walls of Dubrovnik or in the alleys of Šibenik. The jury is still out on that one. But for this weird, tourist-free 2020, Croatia turned out to be a pretty solid destination for a summer vacation.